The following events took place in Ecuador, more specifically in the Tomebamba River, which runs through the city of Cuenca. This is important because that place is the origin of a terrifying being. That being was once a woman who had been married for a long time. She wasn't happy with her husband, so she would go out every night with the excuse of taking a walk. However, in reality, she would meet with another man whom she actually loved. In order to not raise any suspicion, she would go out with her baby boy, saying that otherwise he just wouldn't be able to fall asleep. And so, every night she would walk next to the riverside, both with her lover and her son. She was so crazy in love that sometimes during her nightly outings, didn't even notice how much time passed and felt as if only her and her lover existed. But then, on one of those nights, she got so lost in the experience of being with her lover that she unconsciously let go of her son, let him fall into the river. She came back to her senses a few minutes later and desperately started looking for her baby boy. She rushed back to her house to look for a lantern and brought it to the river, but even though she spent the entire night searching at the riverside, she couldn't find her son. She had to tell her husband the truth, and he was so devastated that the only solution he found was to take his own life. After losing her baby son and her husband, she was traumatized and ended up spending entire days and nights at the riverside, crying, still searching for her son with a lantern in her hands. Everyone who saw her felt pity for her, and she was getting so thin and depressed that she actually started to look like a ghost. At the end, the grief became unbearable and she decided to end her own life as well. They say that at night, people from Cuenca would see the light of a lantern moving next to the Tomebamba River. And when anyone would go investigate, they would find the lantern being held by the ghost of a woman, crying while searching for her baby. She would usually just scare people unless they were unfaithful. And if that was the case, then they better run for their lives. Alan and Martina were two lovers who didn't know about this story. They were both married, they were both cheating on their respective spouses, and they would escape from their houses to see each other, with the excuse of taking care of their elderly parents. Alan had two small children and was doing very well financially. However, his marriage had really declined over the years since both he and his wife worked a lot and wouldn't see each other for days at a time. Meanwhile, Martina had been married for 10 years, but her relationship with her husband received a devastating blow when doctors told them that they were incompatible and wouldn't be able to conceive any children. And although they were still fond for each other, the news destroyed their dream of forming a true family. Martina fell into a deep depression, and her doctor recommended that she took frequent walks to not be cooped inside the house all the time. And since she enjoyed the quiet of the night, one night she decided to take a walk around the streets of the city after dark. Martina arrived at a plaza where she recognized the figure of a man sitting down with his hands on his face. Worried, she approached the man and realized he was crying. She tried to calm him down and started talking to him. The man told Martina that he loved his wife, but his marriage was no longer the same because they hardly saw each other anymore. And he didn't feel capable of raising his children when he was all alone. She asked him his name, Alan. She also felt the need to tell him about her problems. And in that moment, a beautiful friendship was formed. They felt so good that they started meeting up at the same place and time every day, and over time, they ended up confessing their love for each other. At first, they would meet at that same plaza. It was their way to escape reality and felt really happy when they were together. However, they feared that an acquaintance might end up walking around there and see them. Thus, they would be discovered and a huge scandal would break out. They would both be in serious trouble. So they decided to start meeting in a more remote place, and after seriously considering many different options, they ended up settling for the riverside. It would be considerably far from their respective homes, and if anyone happened to be walking around there at night, it would be impossible to recognize Alan or Martina in the darkness. Once at the riverside, they finished declaring their love for each other, and although a sudden cry ruined the moment, it seemed that an elderly woman needed their help. Alan and Martina stood up and looked everywhere until they saw the dim light of a lantern by the other side of the river. They tried talking with the old woman holding the lantern, but she only kept on weeping. The couple reached a wooden bridge and crossed to the other side of the river. However, nobody was there anymore. Weirded out, they went back to their respective houses and agreed to meet in the same place the following night. The next night, they hugged as if they hadn't seen each other for an eternity. "I love you," said both Alan and Martina at the same time, and kissed each other again. They felt as if their hearts were about to explode, and both knew that sooner or later they would have to make the painful decision of abandoning their respective families in order to be happy. Then Alan suddenly noticed some sort of light behind him. It was the old woman from the day before, holding a lantern while looking at the couple with tears in her eye. They asked her if they could help her. The old woman just looked at them while tears streamed down her face, until she suddenly bursted into tears and started wailing so loudly that Alan and Martina had to cover their ears. After a few seconds, the old woman calmed down and asked, "Have you seen my son?" They told her that they were just walking by the riverside and had not seen anyone. However, she repeated the question, "Have you seen my son?" Weirded out, they asked her for how long had she been looking for him. She responded, "For 35 years. Alan and Martina froze in shock and thought that elderly woman was insane. Then the lantern suddenly went out and the old woman's weeping turned into a sinister laughter. Everything went dark and Martina heard that something fell in the water as Alan started screaming. He was pushed into the water and was drowning. And as much as he yelled for help, it was impossible for Martina to find him in the dark. And once she stopped hearing splashes, the lantern was relit right in front of her. Right there was the old woman, showing a diabolical smile while crying at the same time. Her teeth were green and were completely rotten. Then the expression on her face changed completely, becoming completely calm. And then she started speaking. "This is the destiny of all unfaithful people. He died first, and now it's your turn. Let me know if you find my son at the bottom of this river." And the lantern went out again. The next day, the bodies of Alan and Martina were found floating in the river, holding hands. They had no signs of physical abuse, so the authorities concluded that they had taken their own lives voluntarily. And nowadays, there are still rumors about how every night an old woman wanders the riverside with a lit lantern. Her weeping can be heard from far away, and if you try to help her, she will ask you if you've seen her son. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life horror videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.